Streaming, is it killing the music industry? Is it killing off the album? Is it ruining artists and bands? Is it? So in this video I'm obviously going to be talking about streaming, but also to sort of put forward my own arguments and ideas and bring them to the table. I'm going to be looking at some of the arguments that ARTV made in his video that came out a few months back. I'm pretty late to that video, to be honest, but it's really just kind of sparked an interest of mine now to talk about it and use some of the arguments he made in his video and kind of put forward my own arguments. And you know, I'm not going to be like taking what he says out of context to make his arguments look worse. I'm essentially just stripping bits from the video and commenting on them and putting forward my own idea. So if in fact you are watching, John, this isn't an attack on you. This is just a debate, essentially. You know, your ideas are there, your arguments there, and then my arguments there, and you know, that kind of thing. And if you're a fan of John, then again, don't be upset. It's just a healthy rebuttal, I guess. So streaming, I often see the idea put forward that it's killing the album, it's making singles more prominent, and people are less likely to go out their way to buy an album, to purchase an album, or, you know, support the artist, as people say. And you know what? I don't buy into it. I've decided, after thinking about this heavily, I think it's all a lot of horseshit, to be quite frank. I don't believe in this idea that the industry is slowly being killed off or slowly losing out and artists are, you know, seeing less benefits from it. I don't think it's true. Now, of course, you can put forward your own argument and say to me, Ryan, you're wrong, this is actually true and this is what is going on right now, and I'll be willing to listen. But overall, I think streaming has been the best thing to happen to music since ever, actually. I think streaming is something that we needed in the music industry, because without it, I don't know where we'd be. Now, obviously, this is coming from a perspective of someone who's a big music nerd, who is willing to seek out and find his own music whenever he possibly can. He can, you know, discover as many artists as he wants and find amazing new music and share it on this platform with people, and hopefully people will go out there and listen to it. Obviously, I'm a very unique case, and I'm sure a lot of people that watch this channel are the same too. You know, we're people that seek out music, so of course to us streaming is a good thing. But there's also this idea that, you know, people aren't really buying music anymore, people aren't really purchasing albums anymore, but I don't really ever see any proof being put forward with that.
Downloads are nearly extinct at this point, quickly becoming more and more scoffed at as everyone's eyes have diverted elsewhere.
Okay, so as you've just seen there, John says that downloads are becoming extinct, and sure, possibly downloads might be, and streaming is replacing it, but does that mean that people have stopped buying albums, or people have stopped downloading albums from iTunes or wherever else? No, that's a reach. Sure, downloads are slowly being taken over by streams, but if you actually look at like album sales, albums are still being bought even though streaming is like bigger than ever. It's not like streaming has replaced everything else and no one buys albums. I mean, look at Lil Wayne's The Carter 5 sales. Like 150,000 of those sales were actual pure sales. That's a lot of people buying an album just in its first week. Like, downloads aren't really going anywhere because people are still purchasing music as it comes out during the week, and then weeks later the albums are still selling. If you take it even further with artists like Taylor Swift, Adele, Drake, friggin' Drake, Scorpion was plastered all over Spotify the week it came out. People had to get refunds because they were complaining of how much Drake was in their face that week that it came out, and still the amount of sales that weren't coming from streams were huge. Like, they were huge. People were buying that album. And streaming obviously was huge as well, but still it's proof that people are still interested in purchasing albums from, like, artists that they like. The idea that, like, oh, downloads are dying and streaming's taking over, this is a problem, just is another one of those things to me that is like where a change has come in, and like the previous generation or older people or people not in the know are making it out to be a problem. Change isn't always a bad thing. Jesus Christ, if change was a bad thing, then okay, the huge vinyl sales that are going on right now must be a bad thing, right? I mean, if streaming's so huge, then why is it a problem if people are still willing to buy vinyl? Vinyl sales are unbelievable. Do you imagine how many artists you wouldn't know or be in love with without streaming? I feel like it's just so obvious that it's such a great thing that it shouldn't really be a detriment to the music industry at all, because smaller artists are given bigger opportunities. This is a good thing for smaller artists, you know? But here we do have John putting forward the argument that smaller artists aren't gaining from streaming.
By now that Apple Music, YouTube, and Spotify pay fractions of a cent per stream, but when you really get down to it, many small artists aren't making a damn thing off of their music.
Okay, I get it. Smaller artists aren't necessarily benefiting through money from streaming, but they are benefiting in many other ways. They are small artists. They should be aware of the fact that they're not really going to be making a lot of money right from the get-go. So what do they need? They need exposure. How do they get exposure? Well, they post their music on Apple Music, Spotify, and YouTube. Someone is going to find them somewhere. Someone will come across them. I mean, some of the most random artists gain huge exposure just by working their way to the top. I mean, it's so crazy how many artists can do that. The way to do that, you've got to put your name out there. You need to be giving people access to your music, even if it's just in the few thousands, but someone is hearing it and someone is liking it. I don't think it's a bad thing that they're not making a lot of money from the start. I mean, does anyone ever? Like, you've got to work your way to the top in every field that you work in. And it's the same with music. Sure, they're not making great deals of money through Spotify at the beginning when they're just starting out, but that's kind of how it is. There is also Bandcamp, to be honest. I mean, you can put your music on there. Again, someone will find it through word of mouth, through passing it on, through music reviewers as well, you know, like publications will put out glowing reviews of really small, relatively unknown albums, and you see the success of the artists, like, grow quite significantly. Rina Sawayama is an artist that managed to gain that exposure through critics, through people loving her music, and she's becoming quite successful now. JPEG Mafia, Death Grips. That's just scratching the surface. I mean, you know, you don't even have to like those artists, but there is people out there that do like those artists, and that is how you gain the exposure. And without streaming, where would they be? Honestly, think about it. Where would they be? Would they have anywhere near the amount of fans that they have now? No, because people wouldn't have access. You would be forced to pay for the music, which is something not everyone can afford or necessarily want to do. But if you like one or two songs, you can play those one or two songs, and the streams end up racking up and it benefits the artist.
Once you do the math, you realize that on average, they're earning maybe $6,000 to $10,000 per 1 million streams overall, depending on where the streams are coming from. Again, that might not sound bad, but considering how much of the music industry is still stuck in its old ways, you know that most of that money won't make it to the artists themselves. Record labels, managers, producers, songwriters, everyone has to get their fair share of the royalty.
Okay, there are a few things here that I need to pull apart that John said, because $6,000 to $10,000 from 1 million streams. That's good. That is a good thing. $6,000 to $10,000. $6,000 to $10,000 from one song hitting 1 million streams. Is that bad? Am I in a what? Where am I? Am I crazy, or do I just see that as an amazing thing? That's a lot of money to be making from one song. Sure, 1 million streams is quite hard to get, but if you have like 5 songs that are like in the few 100,000, and you know, you add all of those thousands up and it's going to probably come close to 1 million, you're going to have like $6,000, $10,000 just from a few songs. It is extra money that an artist would never see if Spotify didn't exist. I'm sorry, but there is no way you can convince me otherwise, because how would they possibly make that amount of money through sales if they aren't a big name? They know there would not be enough people buying those albums because no one would be purchasing it because they're not well known enough. So streaming is here so you can find these artists, and eventually these streams rack up and you will make a profit somewhere from it. Any money should be really considered a bonus, a great thing. I don't know if it's the way I've been brought up or something, but you've got to be grateful that Spotify is allowing this thing to be a possibility, to this extra money that these artists would never have seen 20, 30 years ago is now here. It's there for them. And yeah, I know John does go on to say, well, record labels, managers, producers all take the cut of the money. So obviously that money is not going straight to the band. But again, that's a lot of people involved that's gaining something from something that they wouldn't have if it wasn't there. Where would these record labels gain money from if they didn't have streaming services? These record labels would go completely extinct, and these bands would have no one to go to support them, to promote their music. This shouldn't be a bad thing that record labels gain money. Like, I don't know where this problem comes from, like why people consider this to be an issue. If you do disagree with what I'm saying there, then just think of it this way. This is all extra money from one source. This does not factor into the account that for whatever reason, one artist might have 1 million streams on one song and they might have like 1 million streams on another song. And all those streams are coming from people that are enjoying the music. So if they're enjoying the music, there's a very strong chance that these fans will go to see them live, which pays towards the band. They may pay for a t-shirt, they may pay for a wristband, they may go out and buy the vinyl, they may go out and buy a CD. All of these things aren't taken into account because streaming just shows one side of people's music listening. But there are definitely people out there that are willing to go out and buy an album and support the artist. Here's something I want to bring up as well that I don't think people will like, but the hard truth of it is you aren't entitled to any money at all, I'm afraid to say. Spotify is a music service that provides a service to the consumer. The fact that artists get anything at all is quite an impressive thing. The fact that artists get anything at all from Apple Music, from YouTube, is quite a fantastic thing. You're not employed by these services. They are not entitled to give you anything. It's an amazing thing that we've gotten to a point where any artist can put their music onto one place and anyone from anywhere in the world can find it. This is so amazing. But people seem to have this idea that, well, they're not paying artists anything at all. I'm sorry, but they're not entitled to. Yes, they earn a little bit of money, and it's sad to see that artists aren't making a great deal of money, but that's because it's a service for the common man, the common person who wants a music service, so they pay £10 a month for it, but it's not really designed for the artists. It's kind of a hard truth, but you've got to accept it. It's the exact same thing with YouTubers. I put out videos on YouTube on this very platform every day. I don't get paid for it, but I am uploading as consistently as other people who do get paid for it. But it doesn't mean I'm entitled. I am not owed shit from anyone on this platform. No one is. The fact that they do pay us is amazing. We're not employed by these companies, and so we're not entitled to anything. People need to realize this. Obviously, me uploading videos isn't the same as an artist making music. They require very different types of things, and creating music requires a lot more talent. But the principle is still there. You're not entitled to anything, really. I'm pretty sure artists actually realize this. Like, this is something they already know. They put their music on a platform and hope they get their names out there, and eventually they will make money from something. It just might not be through streaming, but they will gain a benefit in another area. So aside from the money and the earnings from these streaming services, John goes on to talk about the current state of the charts.
The problem is that there's little to no diversity on the charts anymore thanks to streaming. Rock, alternative, traditional country, and even pop are being pushed aside in favor of styles much easier to produce.
This just is narrow-minded as fuck, man. I'm sorry. John, if you are watching this video, come on, dude. So what if currently in the charts right now there isn't as much diversity? I mean, I guess Girls Like You doesn't sound like anything that Lil Wayne's put out in the past week or so. In My Feelings doesn't sound like that 5 Seconds of Summer song. You know, these are songs that are popular right now. I just quickly had a look at the charts to see. Like, there is a little bit of diversity. It's just a bit dominated by rap. But that doesn't mean to say that Post Malone sounds like Travis Scott, because they don't really, do they? Trends are always occurring when it comes to pop music. Like, this isn't something that's new, I don't think. I think in the 80s, you know, synth pop was booming. Friggin' 90s, you know, the like the heavy big beat dance tunes became trendy. In the 2000s, more indie type stuff made its way into prominence, but there was still a lot of like pop, and hip hop started to slowly make its way into prominence. You know, 70s and 80s, there was also disco music as well. Like, there's always trends, and currently right now, trap is riding the waves. So to point streaming towards what's going on in the charts, to me, is just really silly. Like, I don't really think you've got any argument there whatsoever. I guess if you look at it from the angle that, you know, there's no rock music in the charts, so diversity is, you know, losing its edge, and everything sounds similar these days. It's either EDM, it's either pop, it's either rap, trap rap, blah 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 blah. But still, the argument that streaming allows you to listen to whatever you want without focusing on what's currently top 10 right now proves that streaming still wins, to be honest. If you're sad that there's no rock music in the charts anymore, then you can actually go and listen to Greta Van Fleet, because streaming and, you know, everything of the internet era allows you to go listen to Greta Van Fleet. I can go listen to whatever I want to listen to. To be honest, the charts aren't really representative of what you can find these days with streaming.
Often leaving the beloved album format of yesterday behind. When albums are utilized, they're often padded with ludicrous amounts of material.
Okay, so this last little bit I want to use from his video, he states that albums are being left behind, which was something I brought up at the start of the video, and I said that I don't think they are. I think streaming is pushing albums to prominence way more than they could ever have done 20 years ago. And I know you could look at like the 70s and see that Fleetwood Mac sold millions, Pink Floyd sold millions, even before that in the 60s, Beatles sold millions, Rolling Stones sold millions, Michael Jackson sold millions, the Eagles sold millions. But that doesn't mean to say just because people aren't selling that much these days doesn't mean that albums are being left behind. To use artists like Migos as an example of what artists do with their albums is very weak. He does mention Drake afterwards, you know, and how artists like those are like piling on songs in their albums just so they can gain streams. Well, we've kind of worked out that that's what they're doing now, and honestly, even Drake fans aren't sitting through 90 minutes of Drake every day. They'll pick and choose songs from those albums. People did the same with Migos. People will do the same with Ray Shrimmer. Anyone else out there that does that, people who are fans of those artists are picking and choosing songs. They're not listening to the whole thing the whole way through. The fact that sales are still occurring when you look at album charts just shows to me that albums aren't really being left behind. I think, again, streaming has allowed us to appreciate more albums because we're able to find ones that are genuinely good. We're not just relying on what's in the charts anymore. You know, back in the day, you weren't really exposed to that many different artists, so it's probably why so many artists ended up making like millions upon millions with their album sales, to be honest, like, because they were the only artists around that people were able to access. Now you can access literally anything, and he says this in the video almost as if it's a bad thing because Bad Baby is currently popular or whatever. And look, dude, like, Bad Baby is just one of many artists that you can find today with streaming. You can find indie darlings like Sufjan Stevens and St. Vincent, and that's the beauty of streaming. You can enjoy any of those artists because you have access to them at any time. The thing is, I haven't used every point from his video. He made a few points that I did agree with, but I just wanted to pick out the ones that I disagreed with, because this idea that streaming is killing off albums and not doing good for artists, I'm just not buying. I'm just not buying. I really don't think it's the case at all. You've really just got to put people onto the right stuff and they will fall in love with albums. It's just, if they're not exposed to the right stuff, then they're not going to find any albums they love, and that's what streaming does. But even without that, just put your friends onto music and they will like it. But before I ramble on anymore, I'm going to leave it there. And if you have any things that you want to say about what I've said in this video, do comment and let me know about your thoughts on streaming and the things I've said and the arguments I've put forward. Please let me know. It could be a very interesting discussion, so I would like to see you comment. And again, I'm not attacking John's opinions here. I've just used some of his opinions from that one video. I will link that video below as well, and yeah, just my own ideas aren't in the same mindset as his, so I just want to use some of his points and put forward my own. And if you agree or disagree, please let me know, and subscribe to the channel for more reviews and discussion videos like this if you enjoyed this. And I do reviews every day and all that kind of stuff, so yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Goodbye. Oh, my throat.